welcome everybody to GeoHug. So before we do kick off today's session, I would like to take this time to acknowledge the traditional lands which we're all coming from today. I live on the beautiful lands of the Gadigal, of the people of the Aurora Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and future. And yes, I am thrilled that we have Marco Fiorentini joining us today. So Marco is a professor in mineral systems science at the University of Western Australia and the director of the newly established ARC Centre in Critical Resources for the Future. So with his ability to work at the interface between applied research and fundamental science, in his career to date, he has pioneered research that unveiled the processes that led to the establishment of early life on the planet and that generated ore deposits enriched in critical metals that are crucial to catalyze the green energy transition. So it is going to be a brilliant session hearing from him today about critical resources and ore deposits of the future. So it's going to be a really fun session. I hope you all enjoy it. I will be promoting you all up as panelists throughout the session. If you're able to come on through, please accept and come on through, get the cameras on. We'll open up the floor and you'll be able to have the chance to jump off mute for some great discussion at the end. But yes, thank you so much, Marco, for joining. It's awesome having you here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, Jess.
It's brilliant. And I was very curious what got you into geology to begin with.
Well, lots of reasons, and I've always been obviously attracted by the outdoors, the power of nature, and looking at how nature really shapes the environment that is around us. But being from Italy, I have also had to do with bureaucracy. And when I went to the university to choose my course, geology was the shortest queue, to be honest. So I actually ended up going there. It was the queue made up of the most fun-looking people. So I ended up going there, and I never regretted it.
That is brilliant. I love that. And so I imagine it's taken you to many places and many different roles. What have been some big career highlights for you so far?
Well, I mean, I'm talking to the converted. Most people here would have the same experience. I rarely have the feeling that I'm actually really working. And I mean, with my accent, people generally ask me whether I'm enjoying my time as on holiday here in Australia. I've been here for 5 years. So it's really true. I mean, geology is one of those disciplines that either you love it or you hate it. I think many people agree on this, and I happen to love it. And so I had the opportunity and the chance to visit many different countries, encounter spectacular geology. Geology is truly as we all know, the borderless thing. I mean, when you talk about boundaries, I mean, geology is the one thing that transcends all boundaries and allows the whole planet to become together.
I love that.
It's something that I truly feel on a regular basis.
Oh, that's beautiful. Very, very well said. That is awesome. And I do ask all my guests to bring along some of their favorite pet rocks. I'm very curious what you have.
Well, it was a difficult choice. I have a bit of a zoo of rocks, and for you today, I chose this fantastic. Let's see. Yes, it's actually a impact melt breccia from the Vredefort, the 2 billion years old Vredefort impact crater in South Africa. That's where I take my students every second here. And what you can see here is evidence of lower crustal rocks that were vaporized and melted over seconds of the impact of that large asteroids. And it's just a constant reminder of our transient nature. And whenever you have a hard day at work, if any, that reminds you that worse things can happen. So it's actually a beautiful rock, a beautiful place. I'm sure many people have been there, but that's the pet rock of the day for me.
I love that. Great choice. That is brilliant. Well, yeah, thank you so much for being here today. Yeah, if you want to share your screen and we can get stuck into it.
First of all, I would like to thank everybody for joining. It's great to meet you. Sure, I met you in person, a few of you. I take this opportunity and this great platform, Katie and Jess, thank you so much for providing this opportunity to give a bit of a plug to our new center. You see here the logo, the Center in Critical Resources for the Future, which is about to be established actually next week on the 14th of November. But I just wanted to give you a bit of an overview of what the center is about and what are the opportunities that are out there for any people who may want to get in touch and do something together. So let's see if I can move on. So today, what I'm going to talk about today, so I know it's, I'm gonna, I mean, you're all geoscientists, so I'm gonna provide a very quick overview on the challenging scenario we're in and we're all aware of, and maybe focus on the looming opportunity that for geosciences that we're all here to grab and try to capitalize on. I'm going to talk about the establishment of this new center, which took a little bit of time, but here we are. I'm going to focus a little bit on the themes and programs in the center, just to highlight some of the opportunities. We have 22 different projects for PhD students and early career researchers that are about to start. So recruitment process is underway. So it was a way just to advertise that a little bit and just to promote the type of opportunities that are. I'm going to focus a little bit on the objectives, on the true objectives, and most likely on a characterization of what I mean with ore deposits of the future. So I think that we have all different ideas on what an ore deposit may look like, but I'm going to focus on some ideas that we've been developing over the years and some ideas that we are trying to push through within the framework of the center. And in that framework, I'm going to make an argument and present some of the ongoing research that we have in the center. I mean, as you may know, the Center for Exploration Targeting is in partnership with this center. So a lot of work has been done, is being currently done, and I'm going to focus here for the purpose of today's talk on some examples of a process-based understanding of different ore-forming processes across the lithosphere. I'm going to focus on what we are learning about arc systems, about the role of carbonate melts in the transfer of metals and volatiles, and the use of some tracers to image processes across. The focus is really, at the end of the day, to enlarge the search space, the searching space for resources through new understanding. So as I said at the beginning, the challenging scenario is clear to all of us. We are obviously operating in an energy-constrained world, ESG constraints. We have a declining number of prospective students in geosciences, most likely because we are failing to pass on the message to students, especially in tertiary schools, that geosciences can be very much part of the solutions to a lot of the problems that we are facing as humankind at the moment. And the graph on the right is, I put the lithium there, but I could pick the critical metal or critical mineral of the month. The idea is that in order to underpin and support the energy transition, we need a series of different metals. That mix is going to change over time depending on the technology you're looking at or the availability of any given element. But the point is that the opportunities for us as geoscientists are immense in trying to supply the world, to supply society with the type of resources that are needed. So when we talk about critical resources, we all agree that the term criticality is a very transient term, and we always focus on what are the metals, the resources, the minerals. And we all agree that there is an inventory of strategic metals, known metals and minerals that are required for the technological advances that are needed for the energy transition. And we all agree that sorry. that the ESG constraints are increasing, and the strategies that we adopt to explore for these mineral systems are not as effective as we would like, okay? They are generally not extremely sustainable, they have large footprints, and they are not extremely efficient. Most importantly, from an academic/educational point of view, when you go about the way we train our future geoscientists, I think that we are failing in providing them with that full value chain understanding of how data sets can be generated and taken across the value chain. In other words, very often we treat disciplines and as subspecialties, as separate, distinct, silos disciplines, okay? So there are very little opportunities for us to maximize that full chain understanding. So the title of this slide is, what are the real critical resources? The real critical resources, beside the metals and minerals, are actually ourselves. The geoscientists of the future will need that broad skill set to address these challenges. And that's very much what the new center is about. This is an industrial transformation training center, or known as ITTC. It's in that framework, and it's one of the many ARC type centers that is going to really address this issue, the human resources issues. How are we going to transform the way we train our future geoscientists? How do we enthuse them with also with the enthusiasm and the desire to change things? So this new center, you see the first page of a brochure that we have developed for next week, is going to bridge the gap between mineral system science, mineral exploration protocols, and ore processing and metallurgical extraction. So as you can see, it's broadening the scope of the type of research and training we're going to carry out. It's going to train the next generation of geoscientists with that essential understanding across the value chain I was telling you a minute ago. And based in across, I'll tell you a little bit more, but it has a true national enterprise, and it's going to aim at unlocking that critical mineral potential at the scale of the nation. I'm very, very proud that our current stakeholders span academia, industry, and government. This is a list of all the current stakeholders, but the center itself is never meant to be a finite entity. We are here to grow. It's a kernel to start growing in a new way. So we're open for business. We have new sponsors that are actually at the moment applying to join. There are 4 university nodes. We have the University of Western Australia in Perth. We have the University of Adelaide in Adelaide. We have the ANU in Canberra and UQ in Brisbane. Across, we have the geological surveys from these states, as well as from the Northern Territory, and some government agencies as listed here. The leadership team is really varied. I mean, there is myself as the director. We have Hanita from UQ as the deputy director, together with Carl Spandler, University of Adelaide, as well as a number of leaders from the various institutions. I was telling you just before, how do we capture that across the value chain understanding that we want to enthuse people with? Well, the idea is really to promote changes in the way we go about developing the fundamental science that underpins some of this work. When we first pitched this idea to the Australian Research Council, the word that really resonated with the ARC was the word accelerating. I think we're all doing excellent things across. I mean, globally, there is spectacular work being done. But when it comes to translating that work to really effective modules to really transform the way we go about discovering, characterizing, and processing the type of minerals we want to find and process. Accelerating is the buzzword here, because we need to accelerate. We need to do this at a faster pace. We need to create those synapses between the various disciplines so that we can create a virtuous cycle. Here on the right-hand side, we have this Venn diagram whereby there's kind of themes, the accelerating discovery, characterization, and processing, are integrated in a circular way. What do I mean here? I mean that we are aiming to train our students and early career researchers in more than one disciplines, but most important, we are going to try and highlight how data and knowledge acquired at the discovery stage can actually be translated and taken across the full value chain, to the effect that the understanding that potentially we gather at the processing stage, which is generally thought to be the end part of that kind of chain, can actually be fed back into understanding new ways to explore for a diverse range of mineral systems. In this, you can also see the concept of full or body knowledge that is actually very important in industry and that needs to be translated across. We have data to knowledge translation, as well as, most importantly, being a training center, all the aspects related to mentorship and coaching. Within this framework, if we wish, we have a number of programs. You will have noticed that this, I haven't mentioned any metals yet, simply because the whole work we want to do is not very commodity specific. Actually, the type of understanding we want to push forward can be actually translated and applied to a wide range of systems. I've just put here some examples of the type of work that we are going to do, together with importance related to the understanding of formation and expression of critical metal deposits in and through cover, as well as, very importantly, recovery from secondary sources, as well as traceability and sustainable extraction from a wide range of resources. The geodata science and data analytics is also an extremely important part of the center. The objectives of the center, and this is a very outward, I'm doing all of this obviously because it's a self-promotional idea about the center to let you know a little bit more about this, but also because I would like to emphasize that this center is meant and will be very outward looking. So we are willing to establish collaborative pathways with institutions and companies in Australia and abroad. New pathways for training our skilled researchers to generate that so-called T-shaped workforce that at least is aware of the type of knowledge, of how their specific knowledge background can actually fit across that value chain. Very important ore characterization from nano to kilometer scale. I mean, we have fantastic infrastructure in many universities in Australia, not only, also government agencies. How do we actually fast track the development of these innovative techniques that permit that rapid ore characterization? And in that framework, you're all aware of the fantastic work that CSIRO is doing in this space. The idea is to develop all those cost-effective procedures for processing that will help now Australia as a whole, as a nation, to really succeed in that transition. Specifically, either because it's my background or because where I'm based, specifically here in Western Australia, my specific interest is about accelerating education on innovative ways we go about to discover new mineralized systems, focusing on strategic rather than necessarily critical for the reasons I told you a second ago, commodities, through work that may help us minimize that environmental impact, and most importantly, lead us to the golden dream, the zero waste mining we are all trying to achieve. So the idea here is, how do we go about, and this is just an example of the type of work we are carrying out within the center, how do we target ore deposits of the future? And most importantly, what do these ore deposits of the future look like? Well, I think that we can all agree that they will most likely not look like this. This is obviously an open pit with a very significant footprint in terms of from an environmental point of view. And going forward, we will have to most likely reconsider the way we go about targeting some of these large systems. This is taking us to a changing in the definition of what we consider as ore, because it may look, and it already looks different. I mean, when we consider ore, and for example, my colleague Anita Parker-Fox, when she thinks about what an ore deposit is, that could actually be mine waste from pre-existing mines that could actually be reworked and re-looked at for a wide range of metals. So going forward, together with that repurposing, I think that the focus on high quality, most likely smaller, higher grade, higher tenor systems is required. Innovation is going to be key. And most importantly, we need to move away from analog-based approach that has characterized whether, and very, I would say very successfully, the type of research we've carried out so far. This is actually an example that you may have seen many times. But when we go about thinking about what these ore deposits of the future will look like, we actually can't think necessarily to deposit types we have already defined, characterized, and be familiar with, because the ore deposit of the future may actually be very different from a point of view of their size, shape, and characteristics. Simply because when we think about how we understand the way metals, ligands, volatiles are transported, actually we add value to that kind of understanding every single day. If you go through the literature, there is fantastic work being done on an everyday basis. So why don't we start effectively to translate that new understanding to discover and look for deposit types, and I'm putting inverted commas here, that have never been found before. We need to be brave enough, bold enough to really open up search space for deposit types that we have never encountered before. And that really requires marrying the latest advances in the understanding of thermodynamics, ways metals and volatiles are transported at a wide range of pressures, temperature, oxygen, fugacities, and so on. All the type of work we already do as geoscientists, we need to translate and be open-minded about how this may operate in nature. And that's why I think I would really like to give you a bit of a flavor and overview of the type of work that we are doing, I think. And this is just a little snippet of a much bigger picture. But when we think about shifting from looking for something that we already have pictured in our minds to something that may be completely open-ended, I'm going to give a few examples. So some of the work here on understanding how chemophysical parameters, for example, of arc magmas, but not only, may actually influence their mineralizing potential. This is work that I would like to highlight that is very much led by Bob Laux here, visiting Perth regularly, 2 or 3 times a year. With his fantastic petrological knowledge, he has been really looking at ways to identify proxies in the mineral record, most importantly in the detrital record, as well as in the large rock databases, to really pinpoint the relationship between magmatic differentiation patterns and changes in the hydration, as well as in the barometric properties of magmas. He has very much worked linking how these parameters lead to the genesis of more or less fertile environments, specifically in magmas that are potentially enriched in copper and copper gold. So these are two of the papers that Bob put forward very recently. And jointly with me, we have been co-supervising Carolina Mafra, geology student here in Perth, who has been was just had this fantastic paper accepted in geology, looking at how some of the work that Bob had developed, mostly focused on copper-rich system, could actually be translated onto gold system, and pointing out to the importance of mantle domains, the presence of specific mantle domains in the genesis of fertile gold and gold copper systems. So this type of understanding, again, is very empirical in a way, because it goes back to the basics of understanding geochemical patterns, geochemical features, but basically helps us questioning some of the assumptions related to the understanding that we have about how porphyry and intrusion-related systems really operate. And potentially this understanding helps us really question some of those ideas and broaden our search space for this environment. Another type of work I'm very proud of has been led by Maria Cerdantseva. Maria has recently graduated, I think earlier this year, from her PhD. She's now an early career researcher again here at UWA. And she has been really questioning and looking at the role of carbonate melts in the transfer and concentration of precious and base metals. Her work nicely complements and integrates some of the work that you may be familiar with from Isra Ezzat. I think she gave a presentation a few weeks ago in this platform, presenting some of the work that was published earlier in the year on the role of carbonate metasomatism in the mantle and the enrichment, the pre-enrichment in precious metals of some of these magmas. Well, Maria took this work further, looking at how that relationship between sulfide metals, volatiles, and carbonate occurs within the crust, and actually ended up questioning some of the understanding or ideas that we have on the relationship or petrographic evidence related to the relationship between carbonate rich lithologies or halos and sulfide blebs. The idea is that she has been investigating, and I'll be more than happy to have a conversation chat, but she has been questioning some of the existing models and put forward the idea that these processes could really enhance the transport capacity of magmas for different type of metal-rich sulfides. You can well understand that this is not just semantics, whether these kind of halos represent vapor bubbles or carbonate melts, because the physics of transport and the likelihood of finding these sort of currencies changes dramatically from place to place. I believe that this type of work really underpins and stems from some of the work that Dave Holwell and others had put forward a few years ago, whereby different mineral systems that are expressed in different parts of the lithosphere, going from the lower crust all the way to subsurface system, could actually be genetically related. And I think that the presence of these carbonate melts could actually be part of that common history that links deposits that from a superficial point of view look extremely different from a point of view of the way they look like, the size, the metallogeny of it, but that they could, at the end of the day, reflect some sort of connective framework among them. For the third example I wanted to give you, I'll actually showcase results from another brilliant student, Anne Virnes. She again graduated from her PhD earlier in the year. She's still working in Western Australia. And as part of the ILGAN 2020 project, it's a Mariwa project you may be familiar with, she applied multiple sulfur isotope systematics to unveil processes associated with metal transport mechanisms in magmas. I'm saying magmas. Most of her work was focused on komatiite systems, but a lot of her understanding can actually be extrapolated to magmas that are of different composition, mafic composition. So without going again into too much detail, I'll be happy to address any questions later on what non-mass dependent sulfur isotope anomalies are, most likely anomalies that were generated and preserved in their Archean due to a non-mass dependent fractionation of the different sulfur isotopes in nature. Through that understanding, she was able to revisit ways or mechanisms whereby different sulfide liquid droplets could be transported in komatiites. Fantastic work from Yao and Bongal here on the right that linked tenor with potentially distance of transport. See, basically, Anne took that work and linked to tenor and sulfur isotope, multiple sulfur isotope signature, and came up with brilliant new ideas to potentially predict the distance of transport of sulfide liquid blebs in different komatiite systems. That type of work also helped her potentially put forward the way that new mechanisms of sulfide enrichment could actually be developed in komatiite environments, highlighting the presence or the role of early growth faults. Okay, so she was able to link isotope geochemistry, metallogeny with structure to predict where new deposits could actually be found. Again, I am emphasizing the work of this of Anne, that was published in two different papers, as you see here below this year. So ultimately, the process that I'm talking about aim to very much enlarging the search space that we want to have to look for commodities. I think too often we restrict ourselves we sterilize environments that we shouldn't sterilize, or that we sterilize for the wrong assumptions. So it's through new experimental understanding that we can broaden that type of search space. Again, I'm emphasizing the work of Isra that she may have presented again in this platform a few weeks ago, sorry. Work that was carried out within the framework of the CMET for the work in collaboration with Macquarie University in the University of Leicester in the UK. And again, through new experimental understanding carried out here, you can look at all the details in this Mineralium Deposita paper, she was able actually to showcase the fact that pyroxenitic mantle domains could actually play an important role in the setting and the localization of new metal-rich provinces. Another example I'm very proud and interested in is the work that Liam Courtney Davis, based in Colorado at the moment, recently completed on ore deposits, on beef-hosted systems in the Pilbara. What do I mean here with new experimental understanding? Well, Liam pioneered a new geochronological tool based on hematite, and was actually able to precisely basically date the upgrade or the hematite-rich ore in some of the deposits, actually in all of the deposit, showing that that time of enrichment may have occurred much later than previously thought. Again, this is work that has just come out, and it's obviously out there to be criticized and to be discussed, but it's again an example we have of trying to think about laterally on how, and revisiting some of the processes that have been taken for granted for a very long time, and seeing how do these changes how can these changes help us think differently and potentially open up new search space for different categories, for different mineral systems. And most importantly, and that's something that John Wronski always really emphasized, is rather than focusing on differences between the various mineral systems, how about we go about identifying those analogies that actually characterize the different mineral systems. This is one of the final slides. When I was telling you, I mean, I've obviously focused on the type of work that we are doing to develop ways to open up that search space and then therefore accelerate discovery of these new mineral systems. However, the center, as I was telling you at the beginning, is very integrated, and the type of understanding we get from the type of work that we are doing can be translated down to potentially finding ways to minimize that environmental impact of mining and exploration and move towards zero waste mining. This is work from Henning and others that are now leading the Ekion group that is trying to develop this in electrokinetic in situ leaching. This type of work is underpinned by understanding where the metals sit within the deposits, how they came to be where they are, and how we can actually maximize our chances to extract them in the most sustainable way. So that kind of Venn diagram that you see here on the left, which underpins the whole framework of the center, really points to a transformational way of looking at how these different disciplines work together. And personally speaking, as a director of the center, I feel like I'm learning and I'm actually constantly excited by the wealth of possibilities in that kind of integration of skill sets. So to just finish, and here I'm gonna really very much preach the converted. These are obviously all obvious points that you may have already thought about, but I do think that the geosciences have a key role to play to resource our future. And my desire now with the start of this new center is to create a network of collaboration across the nation so that we can actually really work together to address some of the big challenges that are upon us. I think that there are no doubts that the resource in the future is possible and that can be done sustainably and efficiently. But it is impossible, and I think that we as academics, we find new ways, or at least we apply a bit of self-critics on the way we go about training future geoscientists, and research excellence-led transformative training is the way forward. Okay, so we need to work again as a community to change the way we go about enthusing future geoscientists. I think that process-based understanding is key. We are all thinking in that space. I haven't told you anything new, but we need to implement it because there is too much of a divide between the type of work that is published and that frontier type of understanding that we are developing and what we actually put into practice on a day-to-day basis. So it's probably our fault in not really developing or presenting these ideas in a way that can be translated to in an effective way. I think that the new center, and I'm very biased here, but this new center that we are putting together provides a fantastic platform to foster that transdisciplinary approach that that I've been telling you about. And I truly believe that global collaboration and national collaboration is really pivotal. I am keen, as I said at the beginning, this is a new center that I'm about to start. This is the QR code. We have a website up and running, and we have a number of availabilities in terms of student projects and early career research postings that are or are about to come online. So I urge you to, if you wish, obviously, to get in touch and to work together. So I'm not sure. I think I'll leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was really cool. It's exciting to see what you have been busy putting together.